when a little girl whispered, "Dad has said it wouldn't hurt." The maid's heart froze. What she discovered made her dial the police immediately. The father thought his money and power would protect him. But when the mother returned, the truth shattered everything. You won't believe how this story ends. Before we dive in, let us know in the comments what time is it and where are you watching from. Let's start. The Sterling mansion sat on top of the hill like a crown made of stone and glass. Everyone in town knew the house. It was the biggest, the fanciest, the most perfect house anyone had ever seen. The gardens always had fresh flowers. The windows always sparkled like diamonds in the sun. The gates were tall and gold, keeping the world outside and secrets inside. Rosa Martinez had worked in that house for 3 years. She cleaned the floors that shine like mirrors. She dusted the paintings that cost more money than most people would see in their whole lives. She folded towels so soft they felt like clouds. But Rosa didn't care much about fancy things. What she cared about was little Emma. Emma Sterling was 7 years old, with curly brown hair that bounced when she walked and big green eyes that used to sparkle like the Christmas lights. Used to. That was the thing that made Rosa's heart feel heavy these days. Emma didn't sparkle anymore. It started small. Little things that Rosa noticed because she paid attention. Emma stopped running down the hallways. She stopped singing her made-up songs about butterflies and ice cream. She started walking carefully, like every step hurt. She started being quiet. So quiet that sometimes Rosa forgot the little girl was even in the room. "Good morning, sweet pea," Rosa said one Tuesday morning, carrying fresh sheets into Emma's bedroom. The room was painted soft pink, with a bed big enough for 3 children and more toys than a store. But Emma wasn't playing. She sat on the edge of her bed, her small hands gripping the mattress, her face twisted in pain. "Are you okay, baby?" Rosa dropped the sheets and rushed over. Emma looked up, and Rosa saw something that made her stomach drop. Fear, pure fear, in those green eyes. "I'm fine," Emma whispered, but her voice shook like a leaf in the wind. "You don't look fine, honey. Does something hurt?" Emma bit her lip. Tears filled her eyes but didn't fall. She looked at the door, then back at Rosa. "My back hurts, and my arms. But Daddy said it wouldn't hurt. He promised it wouldn't hurt." Rosa's hands began to shake. "What wouldn't hurt, Emma? What did your daddy do?" "The training," Emma whispered, so quiet Rosa almost didn't hear. "It's our special training. But Daddy said not to tell. He said it's a secret. He said—" Emma's voice broke. "He said Mommy wouldn't understand. He said I have to be strong like him." Rosa's heart was pounding now, beating so hard it hurt. She had worked for rich families before. She knew they did things differently sometimes. Private tutors, fancy lessons, strict rules. But this felt wrong. This felt like danger wrapped in expensive words. "Can you show me where it hurts?" Rosa asked gently. Emma stood up slowly, wincing with every movement. She turned around and lifted the back of her nightgown just a little bit. Rosa gasped. She couldn't help it. Bruises. Dark purple bruises across Emma's small back. Some were old, turning yellow and green. Some were fresh, angry, and red. "Oh, baby," Rosa breathed, her eyes filled with tears. "Oh, sweet girl." "Daddy says I'm getting stronger," Emma said, her voice empty, like she was repeating words she'd heard 100 times. "He says pain makes you powerful. He says I'll thank him when I'm older. He says—" "Stop," Rosa said, her voice cracking. She pulled Emma's nightgown back down gently and turned the little girl to face her. She took Emma's small hands in hers. "Listen to me, Emma. This is important. It is never, ever okay for someone to hurt you. Not ever. Not even if they say it's training. Not even if they say it will make you strong." Emma's tears finally fell. "But he's my daddy. Daddies don't hurt their little girls. He said he loves me. He said this is how he shows love." Rosa pulled him into a hug, being careful not to press against the bruises. The little girl sobbed into Rosa's shoulder, her whole body shaking. "Real love doesn't hurt like this," Rosa whispered. "Real love keeps you safe." The door to Emma's room suddenly swung open. Rosa and Emma jumped apart. Mr. Sterling stood in the doorway. He was tall, wearing an expensive suit even though it was early morning. His dark hair was perfectly combed. His shoes shined. Everything about him looked perfect, powerful, in control. "Rosa," he said, his voice smooth as silk and cold as ice, "I don't pay you to coddle my daughter. She has lessons in 20 minutes. Get her ready." "Mr. Sterling," Rosa started, her voice brave even though her hands shook. "Emma is hurt. She needs—" "My daughter is fine," he interrupted, his eyes turning hard. "She's in training, building character, building strength, things you wouldn't understand." He looked at Emma. "Isn't that right, Emma? Tell Rosa you're fine." Emma's whole body went stiff. She looked at her father, then at Rosa, then back at her father. I'm fine," she whispered. "See." Mr. Sterling smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile. It was a smile of someone who always got what he wanted. "Emma understands what we're building here. Strength, legacy, power." He stepped into the room, and Rosa instinctively moved in front of Emma. "Now, Rosa, I suggest you remember your place in this house. You clean, you fold, you don't ask questions, and you certainly don't fill my daughter's head with soft nonsense about feelings." He turned and walked out, leaving the scent of expensive cologne and something darker behind. Rosa's hands were fists now. Her whole body was trembling, not with fear, but with anger, with certainty. She looked down at Emma, who had wrapped her small arms around herself, making herself as small as possible. "Emma," Rosa said softly, "look at me, sweet girl." Emma looked up, tears still streaming down her face. "I'm going to help you," Rosa promised. "I'm going to make sure you're safe. Do you believe me?" Emma nodded, just a tiny movement, but it was enough. Rosa knew what she had to do. It didn't matter that Mr. Sterling was rich. It didn't matter that he had lawyers and power and friends in high places. It didn't matter that Rosa might lose her job, might face his anger, might have to fight the biggest fight of her life. What mattered was a little girl with bruises on her back and fear in her eyes. What mattered was the truth. And Rosa was going to make sure the truth came out, no matter what it cost. The mansion might look perfect from the outside, but inside, something terrible was happening. And Rosa Martinez wasn't going to let it happen anymore. Not today. Not ever again. Rosa waited until Mr. Sterling left for his office downtown. She watched his black car roll through the gold gates and disappear down the hill. Her heart was racing. Her mind was spinning. But she knew exactly what she needed to do. She found Emma in the library, sitting at the huge wooden desk, trying to do her math homework. The little girl's hand shook as she held her pencil. Every time she moved, Rosa could see her wince. "Emma, honey," Rosa said gently, kneeling beside the chair, "I need you to be very brave right now. Can you tell me more about the training? What does your daddy do?" Emma's eyes went wide. She looked around the room like the walls had ears. "I can't," she whispered. "He said, never tell. He said bad things happen to little girls who tell secrets." Rosa's blood boiled. She took Emma's small hand. "The only bad thing that's happening is what he's doing to you. You're not doing anything wrong by telling me. I promise." Emma's lip trembled. She was quiet for a long moment, and Rosa waited, patient as the sunrise. Finally, Emma spoke. "We go to the basement. There's a special room down there. He calls it the training room." Her voice got smaller and smaller. "He makes me hold heavy weights until my arms feel like they're going to fall off. He makes me stand in one position for hours. If I move, if I cry, if I ask to stop..." Emma touched her back gently. "He hits me with his belt. He says pain is the price of greatness. He says all successful people suffer in private." Rosa felt sick. The beautiful mansion suddenly felt like a prison. "How long has this been happening, sweet girl?" 6 months, Emma whispered. "Ever since Mommy started traveling more for her work. Daddy says it's our special time together. He says when I'm older, I'll run his company. He says I need to be tough, strong, unbreakable." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "But, Rosa, I don't want to be unbreakable. I just want to play with my dolls. I want to not hurt anymore." Rosa pulled Emma close. being so careful of her bruises. You are strong, Emma, the strongest little girl I know. And you know what real strength is? Telling the truth, even when it's scary. Rosa stood up. Her decision was made. She pulled her cell phone from her pocket. What are you doing? Emma asked, fear flashing in her eyes. I'm calling people who can help us. People who protect children. People who make sure you're safe. But Daddy said the police won't believe me. He said he has friends everywhere. He said, I don't care what he said, Rosa interrupted, her voice firm but kind. Your daddy is wrong. Very wrong. And I'm going to prove it. Rosa dialed 911. Her hands shook as she pressed the numbers, but her voice was steady when the operator answered. Hello, my name is Rosa Martinez. I need to report child abuse. I work at the Sterling Mansion on Hillcrest Drive. The little girl here, Emma Sterling, has been hurt by her father. She has bruises all over her back. She's in pain. She needs help. Please, you need to come now. Emma grabbed Rosa's hand. Holding tight like Rosa was the only solid thing in a shaking world. The operator asked questions. Rosa answered every single one. Yes, she had seen the bruises. Yes, the child had told her what happened. Yes, the father was threatening. No, the mother wasn't home. Yes, it was an emergency. Officers are on their way, the operator said. Stay with the child. Keep her safe. They'll be there in 10 minutes. Rosa hung up and knelt down at Emma's level. The police are coming. They're going to ask you questions. I need you to tell them the truth, just like you told me. Can you do that? Emma nodded, scared but trusting. They waited in the library. Every minute felt like an hour. Emma sat in Rosa's lap, and Rosa hummed soft songs, the ones her own grandmother used to sing to her when she was small. Then they heard it, sirens, getting closer and closer. The doorbell rang, loud and official. Rosa carried Emma to the front door and opened it. 2 police officers stood there, a woman with kind eyes and a man with a serious face. I'm Officer Chun, the woman said. This is Officer Brooks. We're here about Emma Sterling. Please come in, Rosa said, stepping aside. The officers entered the mansion. Officer Chin knelt down to Emma's height. Hi, Emma. My name is Sarah. Can you talk to me for a little bit? Emma looked at Rosa. Rosa nodded. Emma took a deep breath. My daddy hurts me, Emma said, her voice so small but so brave. He calls it training. But it's not training. It hurts. It hurts so much. Officer Chen's face stayed calm, but Rosa saw anger flash in her eyes. Can you show me where it hurts, sweetie? Emma turned around and lifted her shirt. Both officers went very still. Officer Brooks pulled out his camera and took pictures. Officer Chin wrote notes, her jaw tight. Has he done this before? Officer Chin asked gently. Lots of times. Emma said, twice a week. Sometimes more. He has a special room in the basement. Officer Brooks looked at Rosa. Can you show us this room? Rosa nodded. Follow me. They went down the stairs to the basement. Rosa had cleaned every room in this house, but there was one door she'd never been allowed to open. Mr. Sterling always kept it locked. But today, Rosa noticed the door was slightly open, like he'd left in a hurry this morning. She pushed it open. The room was cold and dark. There were weights on the floor. A belt hung on a hook on the wall. Marks on the concrete floor where Emma had probably stood for hours. The room smelled like fear and secrets. Officer Brooks took more pictures. Officer Chin called for backup on her radio. This is a crime scene, Officer Brooks said quietly. This is evidence of ongoing abuse. Suddenly, they heard the front door slam open upstairs. Rosa, Mr. Sterling's voice boomed through the house. What are those police cars doing in my driveway? Everyone froze. Emma grabbed Rosa's hand so tight it hurt. They walked upstairs together. Mr. Sterling stood in the entrance hall, his face red with rage. Then he saw the officers. His expression changed instantly. The anger disappeared. Now he looked concerned, confused, perfectly innocent. Officers, I'm Richard Sterling. What's going on? Has something happened? Officer Chin stepped forward. Mr. Sterling, We're investigating allegations of child abuse involving your daughter, Emma. Mr. Sterling laughed. Actually laughed. Abuse? That's ridiculous. Who told you such nonsense? He looked at Rosa, his eyes turning cold. Was it you? Did my maid make up lies about me? I didn't make up anything, Rosa said, standing tall. Emma showed me her bruises. She told me about the training room. She told me what you'd do to her. Mr. Sterling's smile was like a knife. My daughter is in athletic training. I'm preparing her for greatness. Sometimes training is uncomfortable, but abuse? Never. I love my daughter. Love doesn't leave bruises. Officer Brooks said firmly, I want to speak to my lawyer, Mr. Sterling said. You have no right to be in my home. I have connections. I know the mayor. The chief of police is my golf partner. This is harassment. Your connections don't matter when a child is hurt, Officer Chin said. Emma has visible injuries. She's given us a detailed account of abuse. We have photographs. We have evidence. She's a child. Mr. Sterling shouted, his perfect mask cracking. Children make things up. They exaggerate. She probably fell playing and... I didn't fall, Emma said suddenly. Her voice was quiet but clear. Everyone turned to look at her. She stepped forward, still holding Rosa's hand. You hurt me, Daddy. You hit me with your belt. You made me stand until I cried. You said it was love, but love doesn't feel like this. Mr. Sterling's face went pale, then red, then pale again. Just then, another car pulled into the driveway. A silver car. Mrs. Sterling's car. Mrs. Sterling rushed through the door, still in her business suit from her trip. Richard, what's happening? Why are the police here? She saw Emma, and her face changed. Emma, baby, are you okay? Emma ran to her mother, sobbing. Mommy, I need to tell you something. Something Daddy said not to tell. Mrs. Sterling held her daughter, confused and scared. She looked at her husband, at the officers, at Rosa. Someone tell me what's going on, she demanded. Officer Chin spoke calmly. Mrs. Sterling, your daughter has been physically abused. We have evidence that your husband has been hurting her repeatedly over the past 6 months. Mrs. Sterling's face went white. She looked at her husband. Richard? It's all a misunderstanding, he said quickly. Training, not abuse. I was teaching her discipline, strength. Show her, Emma, Rosa said gently. Show your mommy. Emma turned around and lifted her shirt. Mrs. Sterling screamed. Actually screamed. Her hands flew to her mouth. Oh, my God, Emma. My baby. Richard, what did you do? What did you do? The mansion that had been so quiet, so perfect, so controlled, was now filled with truth. Loud, messy, painful truth. And there was no going back. Mrs. Sterling dropped to her knees in front of Emma. Tears poured down her face as she looked at the bruises on her daughter's small back. Emma, oh, Emma, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you say something? Daddy said you wouldn't believe me, Emma whispered. He said you were too busy with work. He said it was our secret. Mrs. Sterling looked up at her husband. Rosa had never seen such anger and pain in someone's eyes before. You told our daughter I wouldn't believe her? You hurt my baby and made her think I wouldn't care. Mr. Sterling's face was hard now. No more fake smiles. No more pretending. Victoria, don't be dramatic. I was preparing her for the real world. The world is cruel. I was making her strong enough to survive it. By breaking her, Mrs. Sterling stood up, shaking with rage. By making her afraid? By beating her in a basement room? That's not strength, Richard. That's torture. You don't understand, Mr. Sterling said, his voice cold. You grew up soft. You think the world rewards kindness? It rewards power. I was giving Emma power. No, Mrs. Sterling said firmly. You were taking her childhood. You were taking her trust. You were taking everything that makes her beautiful and trying to turn her into something broken. Officer Brooks stepped forward. Mr. Sterling, we need you to come with us to the station for questioning. I'm not going anywhere without my lawyer, Mr. Sterling snapped. You can call your lawyer from the station, Officer Chin said. Right now. We have enough evidence to take you in. You can come peacefully, or we can use handcuffs. Your choice." Mr. Sterling looked around the room, at the officers who weren't scared of his money, at his wife who was finally seeing him for what he really was, at Rosa, who had dared to stand up to him, at Emma, the little girl he'd tried to break. "This isn't over," he said quietly. "I have the best lawyers in the state. I have friends in every important office in this city. You think you can destroy me? You have no idea who you're dealing with. We're dealing with a man who hurt a child," Officer Brooks said, pulling out handcuffs. "And that's all that matters." The click of the handcuffs echoed through the mansion's entrance hall. Mr. Sterling, who always looked so perfect and powerful, was being let out of his own home in handcuffs. His expensive suit couldn't save him. His money couldn't save him. His connections couldn't save him. The truth had saved Emma. As the police car drove away, Mrs. Sterling collapsed onto the stairs, sobbing. Emma ran to her mother, and they held each other, crying together. Rosa gave them a moment. Then she sat down beside them on the stairs. "I'm so sorry," Mrs. Sterling said, looking at Rosa with red eyes. "I was so focused on my career, on traveling, on building my own success. I left Emma alone with him. I didn't see what was happening in my own home." "You didn't know," Rosa said gently. "He hid it well. He was good at hiding." "But I should have known," Mrs. Sterling said. "I'm her mother. I should have seen the signs. I should have been here." "You're here now," Rosa said. "That's what matters. You believed Emma when she told you. You chose her. That's what she needs." Mrs. Sterling looked at her daughter. "Emma, I am so sorry. I failed you, but I promise I will never fail you again. Never. Do you hear me?" Emma nodded, fresh tears rolling down her cheeks. "What happens now?" Mrs. Sterling asked the remaining officer, Officer Chun, who had stayed to finish collecting evidence. "There will be an investigation," Officer Chun explained. "Emma will need to be examined by a doctor. There will be interviews. Your husband will likely be charged with child abuse and endangerment. With the evidence we have, the photographs, Emma's testimony, in the training room, this is a strong case." "Will she have to testify?" Mrs. Sterling asked, holding Emma tighter. "Will she have to face him in court?" "Possibly," Officer Chin said. "But there are protections for children. We have victim advocates who will help Emma through every step. And with this much evidence, there's a good chance he'll take a plea deal to avoid trial." Mrs. Sterling nodded, trying to be strong even though she was falling apart inside. Officer Chin knelt down to Emma. "You were so brave today, Emma. So incredibly brave. You told the truth even when you were scared. That's real courage." Emma looked up at the officer. "Will Daddy come back?" "Not if I have anything to say about it," Mrs. Sterling said fiercely. "I'm filing for divorce. I'm getting a restraining order. He will never hurt you again." Officer Chin stood up and handed Mrs. Sterling a card. "This is a number for a counselor who specializes in helping children who've been through trauma. Emma's going to need help processing all of this. You both will." After Officer Chin left, the mansion was quiet again, but it was a different kind of quiet. Not the expensive, controlled silence from before. This was the quiet of a storm passing. The quiet of breathing again after holding your breath for too long. "Rosa," Mrs. Sterling said, turning to the maid. "Thank you. If you hadn't called the police, if you hadn't believed Emma, if you hadn't been brave enough to act." She couldn't finish the sentence. "I did what anyone should do," Rosa said. "I protected a child." "Not everyone would have," Mrs. Sterling said. "Richard was right about one thing. He does have powerful friends. This could have been buried, swept under the rug, hidden behind money and lawyers and threats. But you didn't let that happen." Emma looked at Rosa with those big green eyes that were starting to sparkle again, just a little bit. "Rosa saved me, Mommy." "Yes, she did," Mrs. Sterling agreed. Over the next few weeks, many things changed in the Sterling mansion. Mr. Sterling was formally charged with multiple counts of child abuse. The photographs, the training room, Emma's testimony, and even text messages the police found on his phone all pointed to a pattern of deliberate, ongoing abuse. His lawyer tried to make deals, but Mrs. Sterling refused every single one. She wanted justice for her daughter. The fancy party stopped. The perfect appearance crumbled. Mrs. Sterling didn't care what people in town thought anymore. She only cared about Emma. Emma started seeing Dr. Reyes, a kind counselor who had an office filled with stuffed animals and art supplies. Slowly, Emma started to heal. She started to play again. She started to sing her made-up songs. She started to be a little girl again instead of a soldier in training. Mrs. Sterling cut back her travel. She worked from home more. She had breakfast with Emma every morning. She read bedtime stories every night. She learned to see her daughter, really see her, instead of just glancing at her between meetings. And Rosa? Rosa stayed. Mrs. Sterling asked her to stay, not as just a maid, but as family, because that's what they had become. A family built not on blood or money or fancy last names, but on trust and courage and love. One afternoon, 3 months after that terrible day, Emma found Rose in the garden. The little girl was wearing a yellow dress and had flowers in her hair. "Rosa, look," Emma said, spinning around. "I can spin without it hurting." Rosa smiled, her heart full. "That's wonderful, sweet pea." Emma stopped spinning and looked serious. "Rosa, I want to tell the kids. Kids whose daddies or mommies hurt them. I want them to know they can tell someone. That people will believe them." Rosa knelt down and took Emma's hands. "That's very brave of you." "You taught me to be brave," Emma said simply. Mrs. Sterling came out into the garden, carrying lemonade for all of them. She sat on the bench, and Emma climbed into her lap, something she did a lot now, like she was making up for all the hugs she'd been too scared to ask for before. "You know what I learned?" Mrs. Sterling said, looking at both Emma and Rosa. "Money can buy a lot of things. Big houses, fancy cars, perfect gardens. But it can't buy goodness. It can't buy courage. And it definitely can't hide the truth forever." "The truth always comes out," Rose agreed, "especially when brave people speak it." Emma smiled, a real smile, the kind that reached her eyes and made them sparkle like stars. The mansion on the hill looked the same from the outside, but inside, everything had changed. The silence wasn't scary anymore. The perfect rooms weren't hiding secrets. The gold gates weren't keeping truth out. Inside, there was healing. Inside, there was hope. Inside, there was a little girl who had found her voice and 2 women who had shown her that speaking up was the bravest thing anyone could ever do. A message for you. Emma's story is fiction, but it represents something very real that happens to children every day. Right now, somewhere, a child is being hurt by someone who is supposed to protect them. Right now, somewhere, a child is being told to keep a secret that's hurting them. If you are a child and someone is hurting you, you are not doing anything wrong by telling someone it. It is not your fault. You deserve to be safe. There are people who will believe you and help you. If you are an adult and you see something that doesn't seem right, be like Rosa. Trust your instincts. One call can save a life. Your courage matters more than anyone's money, power, or threats. Children are counting on adults to protect them. Important numbers. Child Help National Child Abuse Hotline, 1-800-422-4453. Available 24/7 in the USA. Crisis Text Line. Text hello to 741-741 local emergency services, 911 USA, or your country's emergency number. Abuse thrives in silence. It hides behind closed doors, expensive houses, and perfect families. But when just one person speaks up, when one person chooses courage over fear, everything can change. Be that person. Be the one who protects children. Be the one who breaks the silence. Because every child deserves to feel safe. Every child deserves to be heard. Every child deserves a chance to just be a child. What will you do if you see something wrong? Will you look away? Or will you be like Rosa and make the call that saves a life? The choice is yours. Choose courage. Choose truth. Choose to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Share this story. Talk about it. Let children know they can speak up. Let adults know they must listen. Together, we can break the silence. Together, we can protect the innocent. Together, we can make sure that every child has a Rosa in their life. The time to act is now. The child who needs you might be closer than you think.